SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Did you know Toyota of Brookhaven has sold more new vehicles the last 2 years than any other dealership in Southwest Mississippi? Come see why. Exit 40 Brookhaven or online at ToyotaBrookhaven.com. Great service, great savings. At Toyota of Brookhaven, we deliver.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man.
Good morning. Middle of the week, Wednesday. Today is the 15th of October, and this is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Thanks for being with us. Richard Cross, Lance Tolbert, Community Bank brings you this show every day. Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community. CommunityBank.net. Good morning, Lance.
What's up, Chief Rooney?
Man, you know, just
feeling good, huh?
Middle of the week, another beautiful day on the way, plenty of news. Life's pretty good, no?
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't complain. The weather is bearable, and we're at the hump day, getting closer to as much football as you can possibly take. You know,
there's a lot of it.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
A lot of it on the way this weekend. Senatobia going to be sunny for you today with a high around 85. Winds out of the northeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour, so not bad today in Senatobia. Greenwood, you're mainly sunny with a high of 88 and light winds out of the north. Laurel, mainly sunny, high of 87. Breezy. I'm just coming up with different ways to describe the wind because the forecast is exactly the same all over the state once again today. Biloxi, sunny, high of 86. When there's 1 degree of difference between Senatobia and Biloxi, and there's sunshine all in between, you know you've got a pretty steady forecast. I was looking at the long range because, Lance, it's been like this for week and a half now.
Yeah, it's just
where it's mid-80s, sunny, just a little bit of a breeze, rinse and repeat over and over. And that's fine. I mean, you know, there are certainly worse forecasts that you could have than that. But it looks like we get a little bit of a change toward the end of the weekend. In fact, a pretty big change in North Mississippi toward the end of the weekend. Sunday in Oxford, the high is 70. With an overnight low of 43. And then all next week, highs in the low to mid-70s. If you go a little farther in the state, it's going to be a little bit warmer than that.
Yeah. I don't think
really good.
I don't think we're going to make it down exactly to that perfection of weather that you just mentioned, but it's going to be close. I mean, here in the central area, the high on Sunday is supposed to be 77. And then Friday of next week around 78. So you start seeing that underneath the 80s.
Just right. Now you're just right.
Yep, just starting to dip in there.
Friedrich Nietzsche was born on this day in 1844, the German philosopher and philologist, born in Prussia.
That which doesn't kill you only makes you stronger.
Yeah. John L. Sullivan, interesting guy. He was a boxer, born in 1858. First heavyweight gloved champion. So first heavyweight champion wearing gloves, and was the de facto champion for about a decade in the early 1880s into the early 1890s. But he was also the last heavyweight bare-knuckle champion. He made the transition just fine, born in Roxbury, Massachusetts.
Yeah, you start out as a bare-knuckle brawler, and you win the heavyweight championship. So you've got to be pretty good at your gig. Mm-hmm. And they say, hey, let's put some gloves on this guy because he's knocking out everybody. And he just
continues pillows on my hands.
Yeah, let's just continue knocking everybody out for another decade. How about that? The pillows
Mario Puzo, born in 1920, the American novelist behind The Godfather, Cotton Club, Earthquake, born in New York City. Oh, what a talent. Speaking of talented, how about this? Penny Marshall. She was born in 1943. She was an actress in The Odd Couple, Laverne and Shirley. She was a director. You remember the movie Big with Tom Hanks? Awakenings, A League of Their Own. And also a producer. She produced Cinderella Man. Penny Marshall, born in the Bronx. Baseball pitcher Jim Palmer, born on this day in 1945. Six-time All-Star. Three-time World Series champion. Did it in 66, 70, and 83. Cy Young winner in 1973, 75, and 76. Had a no-hitter in 1969, the Baltimore Oriole great Jim Palmer, also born in New York City. So there you go. Henry VIII, in 1520, ordered the installation of bowling lanes in his palace at Whitehall, which made me wonder, when was bowling invented? A long time before Henry VIII had bowling lanes put in the palace. Invented in Egypt around 3200 BC, with evidence found in tombs containing early versions of pins and balls. The modern game of 10-pin bowling was standardized much later, though, with the establishment of the American Bowling Congress in 1895, which set the rules and the equipment that we use today.
Imagine like the old bowling lanes. There were probably like people standing down there, you know. Off with their heads.
Somebody push the boulder, see how many people we can knock over.
Yeah. And that was like punishment, you know, back in 3500 BCE or 3200, yeah.
Yeah. 1581, the first Ballet Comique de la Reine, commissioned by Catherine de Medici, is staged in Paris. Swan Lake came along shortly thereafter, I'm sure. 1581, first ballet.
It seems to be, that's hard to believe, though, right? I mean, 1581, that's on down the pike a bit. I mean, it seems like ballet may have come before that, but, you know, it didn't. 1581. It seems like it had been around for a while.
I didn't research it extensively.
Oh, I believe you.
I'm just kind of going with the headline. The Gregorian calendar, introduced in Spain, Portugal, and the Papal States on this day in 1582, skipping 10 days from October 4th to sync the calendar to the solar year and compensate for the drift that had occurred due to the Julian calendar having too many leap days. So the Gregorian calendar took over the Julius Caesar calendar. 1951, the debut of I Love Lucy, starring Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, making its debut on CBS. 1952, Charlotte's Web, published by Harper & Brothers, written by E.B. White, illustrated by Garth Williams. Some pig. 1955, Buddy Holly opens for Bill Haley and his Comets in Lubbock, Texas. He impressed Nashville scout Eddie Crandall so much that it led to a recording contract, but there was a misspelling in his name. His last name was spelled Holley, but because of the misspelling in his name and the success of the record, they were like, just leave it, thus becoming Holly. Of course, Don McLean's American Pie has that line in it that for so long people said, well, what's the day the music died? So 1955, Buddy Holly gets that recording contract. Less than 4 years later, passed away, along with Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper J.P. Richardson killed in a plane crash February 3rd, 1959. This just feels like it's too fast. 1964, Craig Breedlove sets an auto speed record of 846.97 kilometers per hour. I'll do the math for you. It's a little bit more than 526 miles per hour in a car.
Yeah, and then he ended up on Mars. That's scooting, buddy. 526 miles an hour in a car.
If you've ever
in 1964,
yeah, if you've ever been in a vehicle, not suggesting that you should have been or that you should drive this fast, but if you potentially have ever been in a vehicle that was going 100, you know how fast that feels. Times 5?
Yeah, I can't imagine there weren't like rivets flying out everywhere and wobbling and shimmying every which way. Whew.
Couple more things happen on this day. We'll tell you about those when we come back. Just getting started with you. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Thanks for starting your day with us.
Things I couldn't do before, now I know I can. And I'm leaving here a better man. Yes, I'm leaving here a better man.
Know where the news is going next. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
You were the first thing that I thought of when I thought I drank you off my mind. When I get lost in the liquor, you're the only one I find. If I did the things I oughta, still would not be mine. So I keep a tight grip on the bottle, getting loose and killing time.
Mornings with Richard Cross. Country music tunes on this Wednesday, courtesy of one and only Lance Tolbert in the studio this morning. 1973. How about this country song by this country star? Title track, American country singer and songwriter Dolly Parton released her single Jolene. Topped the country charts in the United States and in Canada. Did you like the Miley Cyrus remake of Jolene?
Yeah.
Really?
I like Dolly. I'm not a huge remake fan of stuff, but I thought, she did a good job with it. But it's hard to beat. It's hard to beat Dolly. And I read something. Read something yesterday that one of her family members is asking for prayers for Dolly. Apparently, she is going through an illness or not feeling very well, and I don't know how serious it is, but it was serious enough for the family members to be asking for prayers, though. So I wanted to mention that because I did read that yesterday. But
yeah, they've said dealing with some health issues, but Dolly put out a little video message last week, I think it was, and she said, "I ain't dead yet, y'all."
Exactly, yeah.
Something along those lines. So I think love Dolly. It's impossible not to. I think two of her songs were much better as remakes. Mm-hmm. Whitney Houston's version of I Will Always Love You. Come on.
Hard to beat that, yeah.
And then I love that kind of, it kind of was an acoustic version of Jolene that Miley did. But I could be persuaded on that one.
And I like 9 to 5, too. Love the movie, though.
Oh, yeah. 9 to 5. Again, I love Dolly. And just thinking those two out of her catalog. Islands in the Stream that she did with Kenny Rogers.
Oh man.
So good.
Yeah, what a duet there.
All right. 1976, first debate of a major U.S. vice presidential ticket. Walter Mondale against Bob Dole. 1989, American radio and television evangelist Billy Graham becomes the 1900th person to receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, Hollywood Boulevard, becoming the first clergyman to be granted a star. 1991 saw the confirmation of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. The Senate confirmed Clarence Thomas October 15th, 1991, with a narrow 52-48 vote, one of the closest confirmation votes in history. So, of course, it was a party line vote, right? Because that's how we operate today. It's party line vote and only party line votes. Well, not exactly. Final vote saw some pretty significant crossover. Votes to confirm Clarence Thomas, 41 Republicans, 11 Democrats. And then voting against him, 46 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And finally, in 2017, actress Alyssa Milano, Sam from Who's the Boss, tweeted this: "If you've been sexually harassed or assaulted, write, quote, me too, close quote." Prompted a flood of replies across Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And like many movements that are born online, it took on a life of its own. It certainly became viral. And then it kind of spun out of control. And then it faded away. Because there was another viral moment that came along. And it's not that it faded away, it's just that it went too far. Or did it? News headlines for you this morning. A 5th person has been arrested in connection with a Friday night mass shooting in Leland that left 6 dead and at least 10 injured. The FBI announced yesterday the arrest of, I'm not going to pronounce this right. I'll try, but I'm not going to pronounce it right. Terrorjournal Martin, 33 years old. Terrorgernal.
That's a new one for me. I think you did a great job on it, though.
Terrorjournal?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Interrogational was what I thought at first when I first read it, but
anyway, he's in jail.
Good.
Let's see here. So Martin, Powell, Bryant, Lattimore, Powell again, all arrested, and 4 or 5 of them have been charged with capital murder. Another shooting happened Friday night, Heidelberg High School, after a homecoming game resulted in the bodies of 2 people, including a pregnant woman. We know about that. Yesterday, a 3rd person died as a result of injuries from that shooting. 4 suspects so far have been arrested in connection with that case. MDWFP reporting, that's the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. Wildlife's? You knew what I meant. They reported the first ever case of chronic wasting disease in Prentiss County. Officials with the state agency confirmed positive test results for a hunter-harvested buck during the 2025 velvet season from the northeast Mississippi county. Chronic wasting disease, if you need the reminder, is a highly contagious and fatal ailment among the deer population that damages portions of the wild animal's brain and typically causes progressive loss of body condition, behavioral change, excessive salivation, and ultimately death. Although the confirmation marked a new positive case for the county, Prentiss County was already included in the chronic wasting disease management zone in North Mississippi. As a result, this detection does not require any new changes to the existing management zone rules and regulations. Since February of 2018, 447 white-tailed deer have tested positive for the fatal disease. Carcasses may not be transported outside of any chronic wasting disease management zone. And then research has shown that decomposed carcasses of infected animals can also contribute to transmission when prions bind to soil and plant material. Movement of the carcasses can introduce the disease into previously unaffected or uninfected areas. Chronic wasting disease is a bad deal.
It's a mess, man. Yeah,
bad deal.
We've been dealing with it in Issaquena for quite a while. I know you guys up here in North Mississippi, it's like Lafayette and Panola and everything north of that is in that North Mississippi management zone. Then you have the one on the coast. It's really kind of small, the Harrison management zone. So you got 3 of them in the state that have tried to quarantine these CWD deer, and I mean it's tough. You got to deal with the jawbone anytime you kill and all that, and get them tested. So I know that department is on top of it. They've been extremely on top of this topic for years. Even when we were like, oh well, it's not a big deal, but no, they know what they're doing.
Yeah,
and just follow those guidelines, because I think it's hard to understand how they've been able to quarantine it so well, honestly. Mississippi's a big state with a lot of deer.
With a lot of deer.
A lot of deer, man.
And deer that don't necessarily stay within their fenced-in areas. That's
right, yeah. They move. Deer get around, and so just hopefully one day we won't have to deal with that, but it is definitely a mess.
A former DeSoto County youth minister is fessed up to committing sex crimes against a minor. Former Getwell Church minister and DeSoto Central High assistant basketball coach Lindsay Whiteside pleaded guilty to sexual battery of a child on Monday, a charge that she had been indicted on by a grand jury last year. She's accused of having a sexual relationship with a female teenager between the ages of 14 and 15 from May to November of 2024. She engaged in a pattern of inappropriate behavior with the minor, including exchanging more than 60,000 text messages. Who's got time for that? The defendant was sentenced to 10 years under court supervision, prohibited from making contact with the victim. First 3, house arrest. 5 of the next 7, supervised probation. 2 years of unsupervised probation. District Attorney Matthew Barton wanted a stronger sentence, as he said a male would have gotten. We're back after this.
From the Seabrook.
No filibuster. Just everything you need to know to start your day smarter. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Good Wednesday morning. Thanks for joining us. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Glad to have you along for the ride. You want to be part of the conversation? You can join us on the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. Jump ahead and grab our sports headlines, and we'll go back and have a couple of more news stories to get to. Sports headlines are brought to you by Pearl River Resort. Find them online at pearlriverresort.com. Whether you're looking for golf at the Dancing Rabbit Golf Club, you perhaps want the thrill of a poker tournament inside the Golden Moon Casino, want to get in on the action, sportsbook at Timeout Lounge. Maybe it's just a great meal at Philip M's or Mama and M. They've got it all at Pearl River Resort. Pearl River Resort, your home for casino thrills, family fun, and live entertainment. Visit them online, pearlriverresort.com. Let's start with Major League Baseball playoffs. Dodgers go up 2-0 over the Brew Crew last night. Another great pitching performance on the heels of Blake Snell, who was simply phenomenal on Tuesday night. The Dodgers turned to Mr. Yamamoto who went out and gave them 9 innings, allowing 3 hits with 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts, and a walk. Lance, think about this. In LCS, 2 games, 3 pitchers for the Dodgers, with a pair of starters that have combined for 17 of the 18 innings pitched.
Gotta love that. I mean, that's what you're paying them for, but rarely do you see that.
It's like, what is this?
Is this really happening?
I mean, you don't do it all year long, and now you roll into the playoffs. 111 pitches, 81 of them strikes for Yamamoto.
That was the point I was about to make, was on 111 pitches with 81 strikes. I mean,
yeah,
that's doing it right there, man.
That Brewers team has been so much fun all year long. They have been so offensive, and yet for the last couple of games, more like offensive. See what I mean? See what I did there?
Yeah, I like it.
So that will get us back to baseball happening tonight, right? The playoffs will continue. They'll have a travel day in the NLCS. The ALCS back at it in Seattle with a chance for the Mariners to go up 3-0. They host the Blue Jays. 7:08 first pitch for that ball game tonight.
Oh, pricey little ticket too, about $250.
Oh, dude, they are fired up in Seattle. It's been a long time.
What was it?
To go to the World Series.
How long has it been? It was. I heard the date. It must have been yesterday, the day before, and it almost was a head scratcher. It had been that long.
What, last playoff win for the Mariners?
For the Mariners.
Was it 2001?
Yeah, I thought it was 2001, but I mean, I didn't want to throw that out there. It's just like, whoa, man.
Yeah. Pretty sure that's what it is. The Big Ten has been not just exploring, but deep into negotiations with some private equity groups about taking an influx of cash into their conference. 2 of the members of the Big Ten are pushing back on the proposed $2 billion plus private capital deal or private equity deal. Michigan and Southern Cal have said, hold on a second, are we sure? Does this really make sense? The 2 schools' boards of trustees had a joint meeting. Michigan and USC, the 2 schools discussed their shared skepticism. One sticking point, the deal doesn't address the root issue. Lance, you're going to like this. Soaring costs. That has made the need for cash so imperative for athletic departments. Just providing short-term money, sources said, does not solve that issue. Schools also noted pending federal legislation that makes predicting the future of college athletics difficult at best, as well as a general apprehension to selling equity in a university asset, which would be their media rights deal. Both Michigan and Southern Cal believe there are funding options that can provide superior terms and would like to slow the process and explore those more. The goal, the meeting agreed, should be to help the Big Ten schools that need money, but at the most favorable terms possible without giving up equity.
It'd be like the Windbridge Equity Fund, Michigan, Ann Arbor Stadium at whatever. Can get complicated here, man.
Good. For what it's worth, just so you know, the Southeastern Conference has explored the private equity route extensively, and leadership continues to say at this point, not sure how this makes sense. Maybe it will at some point in the future. But the SEC seems to be content to let the Big Ten go down this road and see what it looks like, and then perhaps follow later. Perhaps. But maybe not.
Yeah, I would definitely sit that one out.
Yeah. See
how that works out a little bit. It may work wonderfully. I'm having a hard time connecting the dots.
Yeah.
Similar to, I guess, the SEC leaders.
There are some things that individual universities can and are doing that actually do make sense in terms of, and it's not like a traditional private equity model, but in terms of like a stadium expansion where you might have a mixed use development. So the school gets the benefit of, hey, we got our stadium expanded the way that we wanted to. And then there's a 40 or a 50-year lease that maybe on the backside of the stadium a developer was able to put in some retail space.
Yeah, but on this, it seems to me like the interesting part, and again, I'm not trying to hijack it, is the demanded return. No private equity outfits throwing money at something just to break even.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. 100%.
So, I mean,
that's been my holdup in the thing since the very beginning.
I'm curious how that's going to work.
Which is why the real estate development piece of it is really a fascinating one. Because there actually is a tangible return there for a developer to inject the capital that it would take.
Well, and that's, again, if under the assumption that real estate values always go up, which, at times.
Yeah, we got 100 years of history that they do.
Well, I mean, but there are windows in there where they don't. I guess that's my thing where, like go back to 07.
Well, that's why you do a long-term play.
Again, I'm not debating that real estate over 100 years or 10 years or 20 years isn't going up, but what happens when you have a valley in there? Is that force some kind of action, much like 07 through 09? You had the mortgage crisis, housing values, real estate values drop. What would that do, I guess, is my question to the value of that investment. Would there be investors saying, sell, like you went through then? I mean, it seems interesting, though. I don't know how all that would work in a downturn. Everything's fine when everything's running right? You don't have to worry about anything, but it seems connecting those would be interesting.
Why you building a big college town?
Yeah. I mean, Oxford.
Hope for the best.
Yeah, Oxford, Starkville, Hattiesburg, they've done very well. Yeah,
no doubt. You had 3 college football games last night. Liberty beat New Mexico State 30-27. Arkansas State came from behind, 12 fourth-quarter points for a 15-14 victory over South Alabama to move to 3-4 on the year. And FIU traveled to Bowling Green, Kentucky, and beat Western Kentucky 25-6. It's a long way from Palm Beach to Western Kentucky, or Boca. No, it's not Boca. It's Palm Beach. Fort Lauderdale, that's where it is, FIU. Sorry. Just needed to have that little conversation in my head out loud. Delaware is at Jacksonville State tonight. UTEP is at Sam Houston tonight as well. So that's your college football action in the middle of the week. How about this story? Did you see this? I'm sure the boys on Sports Talk talked about it yesterday afternoon. So we mentioned yesterday, you got a lot of coaching changes already that are happening in college football. Yeah. One that has not happened, but it's looking more and more like it's going to. That's Auburn replacing Hugh Freeze. Peter Roderkus at AL.com had a chance to sit down with John Cohen to talk about a bunch of things. John Cohen, of course, the former Mississippi State athletics director and baseball coach. It's now the athletics director at Auburn. Listen to this. When asked whether or not he expects Freeze to be Auburn's head coach in 2026, Cohen said he has a never say never attitude and used a metaphor about a car not starting to explain his thought process. I'm sorry, what? I don't know if I'm going to walk outside and my car is going to start or not. I think it is. I have an expectation it will. But if my car doesn't start enough, then I will evaluate that and make decisions about my car. But that's not my expectation at this point about our football program.
Okay.
Hey, Hugh, I got bad news for you, pal.
You better get that car started.
I got real bad news for you. John Cohen's battery isn't quite turning over, and he's just about had it. And he's not going to get a new battery. He's going to get a new car. That's your sports update brought to you by Pearl River Resort. Back with you right after this.
Jolene, 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 please don't take him just 'cause you can.
Pour yourself a cup of coffee and get the Magnolia State's most important news of the day. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Once again, good morning. As we wrap up the 6 o'clock hour, we welcome you back to Mornings with Richard Cross. Thanks for joining us. Mornings with Richard Cross, brought to you by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. No jackpot winner last night in Lotto America. Tonight's jackpot up to $4.81 million. Powerball tonight up to $273 million. The estimated cash value, $127,800,000. But what about the big one from last night? Mega Millions. The numbers, 12, 22, 49, 57, 58. The Mega Ball was 19. Did anybody match all five plus the Mega Ball? The answer is no, which means on Friday, $625 million. That is the jackpot for Friday's drawing, with an estimated cash value of $288,800,000. That is your Mississippi Lottery update. Find them online at mslottery.com. That is mslottery.com. There is a eye-raising story that is coming out of Gaza this morning, Israel, the West Bank, that area. We'll get into it a little bit more coming up, but Israeli military says one of the bodies that was handed over by Hamas is not the body of one of the hostages. That leaves you with some questions. We'll dig into that a little bit more coming up. But here is your kind of update from overnight in the Middle East. Hamas moved quickly yesterday to ease the pressure of a fragile ceasefire agreement in its war with Israel by returning the bodies of more dead hostages, and apparently one that wasn't. The move came after an Israeli military agency said that it was going to slash aid deliveries to Gaza by half over concerns that the militant group was handling remains slower than agreed. Lest there be any doubt, Hamas is already playing games. Already playing games. They are an evil terrorist organization. Any deal you make with them is precarious at best. The Israeli Prime Minister's office confirmed late on Tuesday that authorities received 4 deceased hostages that the Red Cross handed over to Israeli military authorities inside Gaza. The bodies will be taken to the National Center for Forensic Medicine, where they will be identified and the families notified. The latest transfer of remains comes a day after Israel received the bodies of 4 other dead hostages. Despite the development, it was unclear if the Israeli military, known as COGAT, C-O-G-A-T, will follow through with their decision to allow only half the aid into Gaza they had initially promised. And when I say that Hamas plays games, Israel doesn't. Hamas goes, oh, yeah, we were supposed to send you 6 prisoners. Here's 4. And here's Israel's immediate response is, your aid is cut in half. Your 600 trucks is now 300. Period. No negotiating, no debating, just boom. No games. And that's not being pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas, or anything else. I'm just telling you the truth. Trump got involved. Expressed concern in a social media post. By the way, isn't that a wild thing to say? I know we see it every single day, and it's not surprising anymore until you stop and think about it. President of the United States let you know what he was thinking. How did he do so? Through a post on Truth Social. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's how we get our information now. Social media post, too few of the dead hostages have been returned, he said, and he went on in a press conference yesterday. He said to Hamas and about Hamas, if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. And it will be violent, and it will be fast. As the Gaza ceasefire is precariously holding, Hamas security forces have returned to the streets, clashed with armed groups, and killed alleged gangsters in what the militant group says is an attempt to restore law and order in areas where Israel troops have withdrawn. Which doesn't seem as unreasonable as some things, except for the fact that they are supposed to be disarming the show of force, welcomed by some Palestinians who are and have been living in lawlessness, could threaten the truce now that all the living hostages taken in Hamas's October 7th attack have been released. Bibi Netanyahu has said the war will not end until Hamas has been dismantled. Donald Trump called for Hamas to disarm. Hamas goes, yeah, we're not really sure we're going to do that. As the Middle East world turns. We'll be back with you. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Your home.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Shaping Mississippi politics each morning. Mornings with Richard Cross. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Tumble out of bed and I stumble to the kitchen for myself a cup of ambition. Yawn and stretch and try to come to life.
Tell him, Dolly. Tell him.
Jump in the shower and the blood starts pumping. Out on the streets, the traffic starts jumping. Folks like me on the job from 9 to 5. Working 9 to 5.
Tell him, Queen. Mornings with Richard Cross. Great to be with you as we roll into the 7 o'clock hour. Alongside Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard. Thanks for joining us. C-Spire text line open. If Dolly doesn't get you tapping your foot and picking up the pace just a little bit, you might just want to take the day off and go back to bed.
I love the opening where you can hear like the stenographer tapping, tap, 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 tap. Somebody's working, you know.
Man, she's got it.
Yeah.
Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank. At Community Bank, we're more than just a place to manage your money. We're your neighbors, your partners, and your trusted financial advisors for decades. We've been rooted in our community, helping families, small business, and individuals achieve their dreams, whether it's opening your first savings account, planning for a brighter future, or growing your business. We're here every step of the way, dedicated to our customers, committed to your success, and always here when you need us. Community Bank, rooted in our community, member FDIC. This hour of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough. If you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you are not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services plus a custom plan that fits you. Give them a call today, 601-206-7966, or go to mwgemployerservices.com. Thomas in Greenwood says that's 2 Dolly songs. Did something happen to her?
Well, this was the day that Jolene came out. And
Jolene.
It is Wednesday.
Jolene.
I felt like 9 to 5 was a great Wednesday song, man, you know.
So, yeah, no, nothing that we know of, no. Thomas, has happened to Dolly.
I played 2 Alan Jackson songs and 2 Clint Black songs, too, so let's hope nothing's wrong with them also. If
you play 2 Toby Keith songs, it's not going to signal anything other than the fact that he's still not with us.
Yeah. I mean, I just sometimes, you got to double down. It's so good.
But Dolly does appear to be having some health-related issues. She says she's at least okay for now. Have you seen this? Airports, big and small around the country, refusing to play a video with a message from Kristi Noem, the National Homeland Security Secretary, in which she blames Democrats for the federal government shutdown and its impacts on TSA, the Transportation Security Administration. Airports in New York, Atlanta, Chicago, Vegas, Charlotte, Phoenix, Seattle, and more say the video's political content goes against their policies or regulations prohibiting political messaging in their facilities. You know what? I have no issue with that. I actually have zero issue with that. I do, however, have a question. Just a question. If Kamala Harris were president, or Joe Biden were president, or Barack Obama were president, and the director of Homeland Security was, let's say, Lance Tolbert, just random name, and he recorded a message thanking people for traveling, urging patience, and reminding people that the reason that they were short-staffed with the TSA was because Republicans in Congress had caused a government shutdown and wouldn't agree to blah, 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 blah. But thank you for flying, and TSA wishes you a safe and happy travel day. Or HHS or whatever. Would the same decision have been made in the airports in New York, Atlanta, Chicago, Las Vegas, Charlotte, Phoenix, Seattle? Because again, I have no issue with saying, no, we're not going to play an overtly blame game political message over the TV screens and the loudspeaker in the airport. We're not going to throw that in people's faces while they travel. I got no issue with that. But I do want to know if that's because it's a Republican, Trump-led administration, or if it's because they don't want overtly political messages. I'll let you think on that and judge. There's not really a way to get an answer to that question other than, probably using your brain. By the way, various government agencies and emails to workers and on websites have adopted language that blames Democrats for the shutdown. Said differently, tells the truth about the shutdown. Some experts argue it could be in violation of the Hatch Act, which restricts certain political activities by federal employees. Blah, 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 blah. C-Spire text line. Amanda in Pike County. Play 2 Maverick songs. Jim and Ripley. Hope you'll get some. Actually, he says you better. I'm softening it and saying it nicely. Hope you get some George Jones in, or it's not really a country music theme day.
Okay.
Thomas says if it weren't for double standards, some would have no standards at all. CC in Senatobia, if Democrats had a message saying Republicans were to blame, those airports would play it on a loop 24/7. Brian says hello. Hello, Brian.
What's up, Brian?
Thomas had something earlier that I wanted to read.
Brian Barlow. Man, what's up, buddy? Ain't seen OB in a long time.
There you go.
Good morning.
Glad y'all could reconnect via the C-Spire text line.
That's
you can connect with us on that, 601-879-4395. Thomas brings up a news item. Stop the presses. Thomas and I agree on something. You may or may not have seen that the MHSAA, the Mississippi High School Activities Association, has issued guidance to its member schools suggesting, not demanding, not implementing, but suggesting, encouraging schools to eliminate all tailgating activity on campus prior to events out of an abundance of caution and safety due to recent events around some high school football games. Thomas says, why is the MHSAA telling schools to cancel tailgating and other activities? Why cave to fear? Why don't these schools that are canceling homecoming activities just go ahead and cancel the rest of the season and forfeit the rest of the games? Thomas, I agree completely with you. I saw this yesterday and I thought, wait, what? I understand that this is a scary time in the wake of the shootings at or shortly after the Leland, Heidelberg, and South Delta football games? Issuing a blank statement to the entire state and all of your members seems like an overreaction at best, and just poor guidance and leadership on top of that. We have 3 places where a shooting happened either at or after a football game. Nobody have tailgating on your campus anymore. Nobody. Cancel all your homecoming activities. That is so reactionary, so narrow-minded, and so it reeks of, we have no idea what to do, so let's just do something. Cancel it all. Seriously. If you cancel a homecoming game or you cancel an activity, why not just shut it down altogether? You can add this to the list of short-sighted, poor decisions that make almost 0 sense that come out of the MHSAA. And I'm sorry, I know that there are good people that work in that organization, and there are good people that have worked in that organization through the years. And so I'm painting with a broad brush. I'm sure the MHSAA has done some good things, but more times than not, the rulings that come out of the Mississippi High School Activities Association make little sense and are reactionary. They are not visionary. They are not forward-thinking. They didn't talk about enhanced security procedures. They didn't talk about working more with local law enforcement. They didn't talk about the possibility of getting wands or metal detectors to use for anybody and everybody that goes through the gates into the stadium. They didn't talk about increased signage. They didn't talk about adding video surveillance and announcements and public awareness and coming together as a community against violence. They said, no, cancel it all. Unbelievable, but not at all surprising. We got a guest coming up next.
Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
What else?
And always on the SuperTalk app.
Lord, I hope this stays good. I'm feeling empty and misunderstood. I should be thankful, Lord, I know I should. But Lord, I hope this stays good.
So we've got a guest this segment. It's actually coming up in about 15 minutes. We'll be joined by Brian Jodice, who is the National Press Secretary for the American Federation for Children. Another opinion, another angle, another perspective, as I have promised you that we will continue the conversation about school choice and educational freedom in Mississippi. We will compare it to other states. We will look at what is happening nationally. And we're going to do that not every single day. That would absolutely be beating a dead horse. But we're going to do it a lot. And we're going to continue to do it. And my goal here in this conversation about educational freedom and school choice is not to convince you of one position or the other. And some of your text messages, sometimes, as we have these conversations, are defensive in nature. I don't want that to be the case. What I want you to know is that we are trying to have this conversation and talk with as many people from as many different backgrounds as we possibly can without just shoving it down your throat, who have different perspectives and different opinions on the issue, so that you can make the right decision for you. Although some would argue that that's the point of the whole thing. You don't have the ability to make the best decision for you and for your family. We're going to keep talking about it. You can join the conversation on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. I need your help. I am racking my brain trying to come up with a time that communal punishment is best. And I've got one example. And I think it's unique. In a team setting, sometimes punishment for all because of the acts of one makes sense. Because in a team setting, in a locker room, on a field, you operate as one. Individual sports are obviously different, but in team sports, football, basketball, baseball, soccer, and others, there is accountability within a locker room. You've heard people say a football play, regardless of how good your quarterback is, if you don't have a running back that can get yards, doesn't really matter. If you have an offensive line that can't block and can't protect your quarterback or can't open holes for your running back or can't give you time to get the ball to wide receivers, that doesn't really matter. And so you have an accountability model that holds everybody to a certain standard. And so in that scenario, sometimes punishing an entire position group or an entire team for the actions of one player makes sense because those players will hold the other player accountable. And I think it works in that scenario. And you're talking a player is late, and therefore everybody has to run. Players will hold that accountable teammates will hold that player accountable when they all have to run stadiums or gassers or ladders or whatever else as a result of the one player being late. A player gets a personal foul for taking a swing and gets ejected from the game. It affects the entire team, and so an accountability model there works. But as a parent, if you have one kid that misses curfew, is it fair to change your curfew? Let's say you've got 3 teenagers. If one of them is late, does it make sense to punish all 3 of them in that scenario? If one kid is not doing what they need to do in school, they're acting out in class, do you punish all 3 of your kids because one of them didn't do? That doesn't make sense. That's not a good parenting model. It's not a good punishment model. So why would you punish or suggest punishing all of the members of the MHSAA? This is the conversation we were having before the break. If you missed it, MHSAA has told schools that they should get rid of all on-campus tailgating before football games. Why would you say that for the entire state when you've got isolated incidents? C-Spire text line, most blanket punishment is from fear to hold certain people accountable. JD says, he's in the Delta, says the death penalty of the Texas college football team, that was SMU, in the 80s was a team-wide punishment. It is. And if you're using the NCAA as an example on how to make decisions, that's a bad example. They're also not good at their job. They have a history of burying their head in the sand as opposed to addressing issues head on. Look, we've got to call what has happened in Leland, Heidelberg, Lorman, Jackson, and at South Delta. We've got to call this what it is. Those are isolated incidents, and they appear to be incidents in places where there is violence. And the reporting so far makes it look like this is almost exclusively black-on-black crime. And that's an issue that has to be addressed, within our communities. We talked with Sean Tyndall yesterday, the Commissioner of Public Safety. And he pointed out, and I think it was a good point, that communities that have invested significantly in law enforcement are seeing downticks in violent crime. He used DeSoto County as an example, Cleveland as an example. More on the C Spire text line. I think most decisions made in any school issue come from lawyers. We had a bunch of people said that, hey, the statement from the MHSAA was a CYA statement. Cover your hiney. Thomas in Greenwood said, here's an idea. Let the patrons of the events decide for themselves if they want to go or not. You make decisions about your own personal safety. Okay? Dave says, try to understand what they are saying, or maybe he's saying trying to understand. Did they recommend that schools not do it, or did they tell the schools they cannot do it? Talking about tailgating on campus. No, it was a recommendation that schools eliminate tailgating. It wasn't a mandate or a directive. It was a suggestion that this is what you should do. It's a bad suggestion. Josh and Clinton says it's a democratic mindset. They don't believe in individual responsibility or accountability, just punish everyone. As is the case in the gun control debate. This story from the Hill, mentioned it briefly before we go to the break. The Young Republican National Federation has called for immediate resignations following a report from Politico on a leaked group chat that featured racist, anti-Semitic, and violent discussions. Their statement, that from the Young Republicans, we are appalled by the vile and inexcusable language revealed in the Politico article published today. Such behavior is disgraceful, unbecoming of any Republican, and stands in direct opposition to the values our movement represents. Those involved must immediately resign from all positions within their state and local Young Republican organizations. We must hold ourselves to the highest standards of integrity, respect, and professionalism. The chat featured racial slurs, thoughts on sexual violence, and maybe this is an example that kind of ties to what we're talking about. You hold the individuals accountable immediately, with resignations demanded, and in the absence of those resignations, terminations. You get rid of the problem. You don't disband the entire organization. More coming up with you. On the other side of this timeout, we will pick up the school choice conversation with Brian Jodice. He is National Press Secretary for the American Federation for Children. What's happening nationally versus the conversation that's happening right here in Mississippi. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi. Glad to be with you on this Wednesday, October 15th.
From the Seabrook.com.
Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Like I need your rocking chair. I don't need your rocking chair. Geritol or your Medicare.
Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. Richard Cross with you. Lance Tolbert in the studio. It is MRC. A new national poll from 3D Strategic Research, which surveyed 1,000 registered voters in the first week of September, found that 73% of voters believe school choice should be open to all families, and only 20% would vote for an anti-school choice candidate over a pro-school choice candidate for their state legislatures. Brian Jodice joins us this morning. He's the National Press Secretary for American Federation for Children. Brian, good morning. Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, Richard, great to be with you and your listeners. And a native Mississippian here. Was born in Mississippi long time ago. We got to spend about 4 years. My dad was at Columbus Air Force Base. And so I brought my Bulldog helmet with me. I know you've got your Rebel helmet over your shoulder. So I brought that to liven it up a little bit this morning and have some fun. But, man, really great to be with you.
Certainly appreciate your time. It's a fun time of year with college football rolling along, no doubt. This conversation is one that is absolutely happening in Mississippi surrounding the idea of school choice and educational freedom, but it's not isolated to here in Mississippi. It's happening all over the country. We know that one of President Trump's agenda items has been universal school choice to give parents and families the opportunity to send their kids to school where they think is best. But there also has been a lot of pushback to this idea for a lot of different reasons. So in terms of the American Federation for Children, obviously an organization that is for school choice and moving this ball down the road, where does the perspective come from that this is what makes the most sense?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you're right. And we've heard it. I mean, I've been listening in to the state, and y'all have had really incredible discussions around this. And I think we're, anticipating maybe some more movement on the school choice expansion front. Look, what we've seen from families across the country over the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of momentum, but really over the last 5 is this idea that their kids should be empowered to go to the school that really best meets their needs, and those dollars should be able to follow them. And we've seen this play out in state after state. We have nearly 20 states that have what we call sort of a universal school choice program, but over 30 states that have some sort of school choice program. Mississippi has some. They're relatively small by comparison, but we think there can be some growth there. And while that's continued to happen, you saw real momentum out of D.C. this year, where on the 4th of July, the president, through the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, signed into law this first of its kind federal scholarship tax credit that really can unlock even more school choice in all 50 states. And we could talk a little bit more about what that means and how states can participate, but it really just shows us alignment with what we've seen. And as you mentioned, I mean, poll after poll has shown that the majority of Americans have really shifted on this idea that dollars should follow the kids of the school that best fits them. And that's why we've seen more programs like voucher programs or tax credit or education savings accounts really expand across the country.
Even among our listeners, and if you've been tuning in, you certainly have heard the various opinions. There are some that are just absolutely 100%. Sure. I should have the right as the parent to send my child to the school that they believe or that I believe is best for them. But we've heard from administrators, including superintendent of the Oxford School District, where I live, Bradley Robertson, earlier this week, that said, hey, let's not lose sight of the fact that public schools play a very, very important role, and they are community assets, and school choice should not be a consumer model. This is kind of a greater good thing. I think that there are parts of the argument that make a lot of sense on both sides. Is that an unreasonable position?
I just don't think they have to be mutually exclusive of each other. I mean, I think you can even look to somewhat neighboring states. Like we can go to Florida, for example, where they've got the largest school choice programs in the country. And there's often this conversation about, school choice can be detrimental, specifically in our rural communities. Mm-hmm. But we've seen there where they've had incredible growth in school choice, even in the rural communities. About 83% of their families are still picking their public schools, and they've actually have a link between where school choice programs have been created and actually improving. So I do see this as a rising tide that can lift all boats, because when you interject a little more competition into the marketplace, you're going to give families, options. And this idea that, we've often heard, that, you're going to be siphoning money away. Families are going to automatically leave if you create school choice programs. Maybe that provides the public system just a chance to maybe look internal a little bit and think, how can we improve what we're doing here? Because on the surface, I can meet you at the premise and say, so if you give a family a scholarship, you give them a voucher, you give them an ESA, if they're automatically going to leave, well, maybe they're not getting what they need there. And so by providing them that mobility, that equal access to move, we've just seen it work. You've got neighboring states that are expanding school choice. And I think there's more than Mississippi could do there. But look, on the plus side, you guys are doing incredibly well. You've seen test scores increase. One of the few states that have actually seen these NAEP test scores increase. So something in Mississippi is working well. But what we're saying is interject a little more choice into the marketplace, help families find the best fit. We think it can help everybody.
Well, and you brought up where I was going to go next. When you see the progress that Mississippi has made in the last decade, it's funny. It's been coined the Mississippi Miracle, and people that have been really involved with it actually push back. They're like, no, this is not a miracle. This is a result of some programs that have been put in place, some decisions that have been made in terms of accountability. It's the result of a lot of hard work, not something that just magically happened one day. But when you look at that and say, okay, what Mississippi as a state has been working, what the state has been doing has worked exceptionally well over the last decade to allow that improvement within schools. Why would you change that? How do you respond to that?
Yeah, so I don't view it as a radical change to that. I think it's just a way to provide families some options outside of that. And look, I mean, you've had good results. You're right. It's been a lot of hard work, policy shifts, right? You're on the ground there. I mean, you've probably seen the positive benefits. But I don't think that by creating additional school choice programs or maybe taking the ESA in Mississippi and expanding out and having more families to be eligible for it, I don't think it has to work counteractive or counterintuitive to what's happening in the improvements. I think it's just about empowering families to be able to find that place that's the right fit for them. And look, we've often talked about this, the big schooling unions will tell you, give us every single dollar, right? Give us all the resources. We'll put it all into public education. We're going to make this the best place. Even with that, even with every single dollar imaginable, it's not going to be the right fit for every kid in the state. And so by looking into, okay, what can we do to invest in students across our state, right? So let's make strong investments in our traditional public schools across the state of Mississippi. Let's make sure that that's student-centered focus. Same thing with these choice programs. I view them as the same way. State legislatures have a great opportunity to say, we're going to make an investment in students. If we go back, if we start shifting to that model, we can kind of maybe bring the walls down a little bit, Richard, on like this versus that, this model versus this one, and let's focus on what's going to be best for the kids.
So many times when we see a problem, we think throwing money at it is the answer. Yeah. And that's I'm glad that you brought that point up, because in terms of throwing money at the problem, yes, Mississippi has invested, but if you look at per student spending on a state-by-state basis, Mississippi is nowhere close to the top. Right? I mean, it's not even close when you compare, what they're spending per student in Virginia or Florida or Arizona or pick a random state. To me, that makes it even more impressive. You could go into major metropolitan areas in these big states. Yeah. Where, I mean, you're talking about even places where they're spending $30,000 a kid, right? And just not getting the results. Now, at the same time, choice programs across the country are often allocating kind of a fraction of that to be able to go with the kid to the school of their choice, and oftentimes doing a lot more with less. So again, I think we're saying the same thing in that, look, throwing money at the problem is not always going to solve everything. But by creating sort of much more of a student-centered kind of investment, looking at education, investing in those students, then let them find the best place. And I think there's great ways to do that with open enrollment, charter school expansion, this ESA model that we've seen, get wildly popular across the country, and it polls really well. I mean, even with Republicans, Democrats, when you ask them about education savings accounts, polls really high, this idea of like, put the dollar in the kid's backpack and let them go where it's going to work for them. Visiting with Brian Jodice. He is the National Press Secretary for the American Federation for Children. I think you're going to hang with me through the break. And on the other side, I want us to talk about that educational scholarship that was part of the One Big Beautiful Bill. I think that's something that a lot of people don't know about, and I guess can be forgiven because there was a lot in that bill, and we kind of only got headlines out of it when it came out. Before the break, though, let me ask you about this. Surrounding states, Arkansas, Tennessee, Louisiana, those are three of the states in particular that people have talked about as, hey, this is a model for what school choice could look like. And yet the implementation of the school choice and some of the funding for that has maybe not been exactly how it was advertised initially. What are the results that you're seeing in Arkansas, in Louisiana, in Tennessee specifically, because those are neighboring states to Mississippi?
Sure. Yeah. So I don't have the numbers on the amount of kids that are on those programs off the top of my head. I do know that there's new research out. And I think what Arkansas has done a really good job. Their program's been alive for 2 years, right?
Sure, very
so
new.
They're relatively new in this. What I think they've done very well from an implementation standpoint is reporting. They've got new reporting out that shows very quickly in a short amount of time that those kids are doing well in the program. So I think that's important. I think about Tennessee, again, new expansion in Tennessee. So they're kind of new to this expansion game. But I've also seen, application numbers high. Look, they had some logistics issues early, but they got that all squared away. And I think you're going to see more people asking for it. And I think you're going to see kind of max demand in that state as well. And look, I live in North Carolina. We had a program that was about 30,000 kids a few years ago. It's about 100,000 now. We've seen massive spikes in applications. So look, in the early years of those programs, sometimes it takes a little feeling out, but as long as the intention is there to put the dollars to go with the kids, they end up working out well and they end up empowering more families. So they've got work to be done, but good results early.
We'll continue the conversation on the other side of the break. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
From Sumner to Summit to Summerall, Richard has something for you. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Appreciate you being with us on this Wednesday morning, middle of the week, middle of the month, October 15th. Brian Jodice is my guest, National Press Secretary for the American Federation for Children. And Brian, really appreciate you being on as we continue the conversation this morning. You alluded to this, and it's an interesting point to me because I think people on both sides of this issue, at least at the legislative level in Mississippi, have said that the number of students that we're actually talking about that might participate in a movement from one school district or one school to another is actually relatively small, that they don't think it would be a massive number in terms of movement. Have you seen that across the country as being the case, or does it just really vary from state to state?
Yeah, so it varies a little bit, but I mean, you're seeing a bit of a trend. I mean, I'll use where we live in North Carolina, not but 10 years ago, about 85, 88% of our kids were attending traditional public schools. We've had school choice growth here in North Carolina to where now that's about 78%. So you've seen a bit of a shift, but it's rarely a sort of a seismic shift. I mean, I'd make the argument that even if you create some school choice programs that'll help 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 students, at least you're doing something to help those families. And so, look, we'd encourage the legislature to lead on this, be strong on this. I think Speaker White's been very strong on this, a big champion. I know the governor likes this idea of expanding school choice across Mississippi. So, look, if you can help more kids get access to programs like this, we think it's a good idea. While at the same time, again, like we talked about in the first segment, you guys have done a lot to improve traditional public education across the state as well. So again, they don't have to be mutually exclusive of each other, and you can see some trends, but rarely is it a mass exodus. All right, but it doesn't have to be. It's about just letting families find the place that's going to serve them the best.
We get a message on here on the C Spire text line 601-879-4395, and the message said, Richard, the answer is follow the money. Now tell me what the question is. And, it feels like that goes with so many decisions that we see at every level of government, follow the money, because everybody's got an interest in that. Money has been a big part of this conversation, and I think one of the concerns that local school districts have had, if the state portion of funding that goes with an individual student follows a student from one school district to another, what about the rest of the funding for that student? Does that fall on the receiving district? Because the state portion of the funding doesn't come close to covering all of the expense related to a new student. What about the pressure that puts on a district that maybe is excelling and has a community that supports its schools in a big way, and yet you put more on those local taxpayers to foot the bill for receiving new students?
Make sure I'm hearing that correctly. So if it's in an open enrollment scenario, I don't know if that question specifically pertains to an open enrollment scenario, right? So if they were to leave one district school go to another district school, right? Those resources should stay the same as far as, I'd be tracking on that. But let's use the example of a kid is enrolled in a traditional public school, and then let's say you created an expanded ESA program that would support them with a scholarship to the tune of $5,000, $6,000, or even $7,000. That probably wouldn't even match 100% of what the state funding would be for that kid in their traditional public school seat. So they'd actually be taking less with them. And I'd also just make the argument that traditional public schools, right, and if they're funded from a state, local, and federal level, which most traditional public schools across the country are, right, by the time you stack that up, those kids are often getting $13,000, $14,000, maybe $15,000 a year on their name. You take a portion of that with them through a choice program, and you're still able to keep those local and federal funds in there. And look, I think it's part of it is a mindset shift and maybe an ideological shift of we need the funds in this school to educate all the kids that are in this school. And while you're going to be able to pull in local support, right, to be able to do that as well, like county taxes or, whatever other supplements you might have, right, that's all going to be able to support them. So again, by sort of freeing up the sort of the state allocation, and even if you went to 100%, right, in a lot of choice programs, they'll do 90% of what we'd consider sort of this cost to educate a kid in a public school that might go with them to their choice program. So rarely is it just yanking it out, right? And it's not like that money just automatically just disappears.
So the one big beautiful bill, and we've got a minute left. Talk to me as quickly as you can about this education scholarship piece that might be coming from the federal level.
Yeah, so here's what happened. The president signed into law. We're calling it the federal scholarship tax credit. Here's what it's going to do in 2027. States that choose to participate, and we're encouraging all 50 states, and obviously I think Governor Reeves would be on board to sign up for this. But states that choose to participate can have these SGO, scholarship granting organizations. Then taxpayers in the state can donate to these SGOs, and they can get a tax credit of up to $1,700 right off their federal tax bill. So it's great for taxpayers, right, to be able to provide educational resources for kids in their state, again, assuming the state chooses to participate, and all states should. And then you're going to be able to create educational resources for families to use for things like private school tuition, but also tutoring, educational services, special needs. There's got some transportation things that can be used. So it really can help kids across a lot of different makes and models, and it helps taxpayers in the state, and it really can be a win-win. And it can help bring school choice to all 50 states in the country. And, there's states that will never do it. I mean, think about your New Yorks and Californias. This could be a real chance at some educational freedom for kids that would never have it before.
Brian Jodice, National Press Secretary with the American Federation for Children. I appreciate your time. Let's visit again.
You got it. Anytime.
Mornings with Richard Cross, 8 o'clock hour on the way.
Morning, partner. The sun is up, the coffee is on, and you're starting your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
I got rice cooking in the microwave. Got a 3-day beard I don't plan to shave. And it's a goofy thing, but I just gotta say, hey, I'm a-doing all right.
Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank. At Community Bank, we're here for every part of your financial journey. Looking to manage your personal finances? Our banking representatives and services make it simple, secure, and tailored to you. Ready to grow your business? We offer expert guidance and custom solutions to help your business thrive. Dreaming of a new home? Our mortgage specialists are here to make the process seamless, all designed with you in mind. We're more than just a bank. We're your partner for life's biggest moments. Community Bank, rooted in our community. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. This is Mornings with Richard Cross. We're glad to be with you. Lance in the studio. He's spinning the country music tunes this morning, and we roll on with our guests. Peter Costa joins us right now, my good friend, who, at least for now, calls New York home. He's a former market analyst with CNBC and a governor with the New York Stock Exchange. You look good, my friend. Hello.
How are you doing, Richard?
I'm great, man. It's always good to be with you. Maybe a little less good to be in federal government right now, where we enter week 2 of the. I guess we're now entering week 3. It's 2 weeks ago today when the government shutdown began. You wrote a column in Costa's Corner. By the way, if you don't subscribe, you can do that. It's free. It's available via Substack. The easiest way is just to Google Peter Costa, Costa's Corner, and you can pop in your email address and have that come to your inbox. I think it was 2 weeks ago today where you wrote that the the government shutdown is kind of baked into the markets, and you were generally disgusted, if I remember correctly, with everybody that was involved with where we are in terms of the shutdown. What's the length of time that being baked into the market can be okay versus it starts to really have an effect?
Well, I think, Richard, that, we've seen these shutdowns before. Generally, they don't last this long. This one seems to be going nowhere. So my guess, and this is a guess, this is an educated guess, I would think that probably once we get to about the 1 month mark, that will start really impacting the economy. You're talking about 2.5 million people or more that are reliant on U.S. government funds. And without getting those funds, some of these people are going to stop working. I mean, I know that air traffic controllers aren't getting paid, but they are working. So I got to figure about a month. And then if something doesn't happen, there could be some serious consequences because, over the last 15 years, the U.S. government has grown exponentially, and it's, if you know me, and if anybody's ever read my column, you know that I'm not anti-government, but I am a little bit of a libertarian where I do believe that the government is needed for certain things, and there's a lot of things that we don't need the government for. There's a lot of different ways. The private sector can handle a lot of different things that the government does. But that's an argument for another day. But I do think that the market has really absorbed this. More importantly, and this is something we don't want to forget, is that, equity markets are about earnings. And the bank earnings have been coming out the last 2 days, and they've been exceptional. And I think that's more what people are focusing on right now. I mean, you still have that AI story behind it. The tariff thing has kind of gone to the back burner at the moment, and it's more about earnings right now. So this should help the market for the next couple of days. But getting another 2 weeks in without the government functioning, I think that's going to be that'll be the tipping point, probably by the end of this month, early next month.
Sometimes we conflate the market and the economy and kind of make those two things the same, at least in the minds of some. But they're not exactly the same. So if the market is doing okay, what about the economy? Because when you and I first started talking, good grief, I guess it was back at the beginning of this calendar year, you had concerns about the possibility of a recession. Largely, we have avoided that. We've talked a lot about interest rates and whether or not they're going down. We got the 25 basis point decrease with the expectation that more of those are coming before the end of the year. So what about the economy in terms of how it's doing?
Well, I think one of the things is that it's held up fairly well, but a lot of the not growth, but a lot of the stabilization in the economy is the amount of money that's going into the AI infrastructure. I mean, you're talking about $400 or $500 billion being invested just this year in strictly in infrastructure. That's a significant amount of money. That can help alleviate some of the concerns about the job market. But at the end of the day, the economy is starting to soften. I mean, we're seeing that. You're not going to, probably won't see it in the GDP numbers, but you'll start seeing it when we do start getting data from the government. You will start seeing some softening in the economy. I don't think we're in a recessionary period. We're going to go into a recession. Generally, recessions, the key indicator for recessions is the housing market. When you see the housing market fold over, you'll see a recession shortly after that. So, but we haven't seen that. I mean, it's been spotty, but generally, I live on Long Island, so, it's hard to say here because the prices of homes continue to go up like there's no tomorrow. But overall, I think the housing market is not as strong as it once was. And I think if you do see a turning over of the housing market, you will see some recessionary pressure. But we haven't yet. So, it's only a matter of time before the market actually starts correcting itself And that's not so much with the economy. I think it's more about pricing. But, I think we're in that space right now that, everyone says that, well, the market's doing great, the economy's doing great. Well, the economy's doing okay, but the market is doing better. And there's a disconnect. And we do see disconnects now and then, but they generally do meet each other at some point. So you will see some sort of correction where it kind of better reflects what the economy is doing.
What about global events? We have so much news this week from the Israel-Hamas ceasefire and how that's going to look and how that's going to last. We've got the war that's going on between Russia and Ukraine. But then there's the big elephant, and that's China, I think, and how are they going to get their oil, and we're going to drop 100% tariff on them, and actually let's cool off on that idea, and maybe they can get their oil from OPEC and stop relying on Russia. Can we convince them to do that? Are Trump and President Xi going to meet? Or are they not going to meet? Are they going to meet? Are they not going to meet? Is China the biggest piece of the global geopolitical puzzle that has a direct effect on where we are economically?
100%. It is. You see the Treasury Secretary saying that they're not backing down on anything that concerning China. The Chinese, remember, they look at things 25 to 50 years out. So to them, a short-term kerfuffle with the United States is not going to deter them from the long-term plan that they have. That being said, you can negotiate with any country you want. China is completely different. And they control a lot of the rare earth elements, which I think is what this is. Right now, this is what it's all about.
Right.
And then you'll see that the U.S. is going to stop sending, vegetable oil. I mean, it's these things have a tendency to accelerate fairly quickly, and it is going to impact the U.S. definitely. I mean, as far as we think that we're not sending them vegetable oil, that's going to really impact the Chinese. There are probably 30 different countries that will definitely fill that void, and you can look at Brazil, or you can look at Argentina, and they may love the U.S. They love money more. And the Chinese money is just as good as the American dollar, and they are going to send whatever they can there because that keeps their farmers happy. So I don't think that we have as many bullets in the chamber as we think we do, because the Chinese do have alternatives for almost everything that they import. As far as exporting, that's a different story, and that's where the tariffs come in. And that impacts us a lot. So I don't think that you're going to see that 100% tariff on Chinese imports last for very long. I think that's a strong, obviously, Trump negotiating ploy. I think it'll probably come back down to somewhere around 30, 35%. And they will eventually make a deal at some point. But it is the biggest thing right now overhanging the future. Has it been impacting the market? No, but it will at some point if this does not get resolved. You saw the damage, the announcement on April 6th about the tariffs that President Trump announced and how the market sold off terribly. If this doesn't get resolved, and I think a lot of people believe it will, if it doesn't get resolved to some satisfaction on both sides, because you can't have it only one way, there will be a sell-off, and this will be not as bad as what we saw in April, but we definitely will see some reverberation in the equity markets.
Going to take a quick time out. We've got more with Peter Costa coming up on the other side of this break. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
No matter where you're from, Abbeville, Batesville, D'Iberville, or any other ville in the SIP, you're starting your day off right. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
That hot old summer sun make you beg for your next breath. So you best be on the creek bank late in the shade.
Good to be with you this morning. It is Mornings with Richard Cross. Hope your Wednesday is off to a good start. Middle of the month of October. It eventually is going to feel more like October, more like fall in Mississippi, probably like it does on Long Island this morning. That's where Peter Costa joins us. From where he joins us, he is a former market analyst with CNBC. You could see him on television on the regular. Probably you did. And also a governor with the New York Stock Exchange. Lance put me up to this question. He the last time you were on with us, he said, ask Peter about how things have changed from when you started as a stockbroker at the New York Stock Exchange to when you stepped away from that job a couple of years ago.
Well, there's a lot of changes. I think that the speed of which, this goes throughout everything. The speed at which we get information. When I first started, everything was verbal communication, and if there was something that was going to impact the stock that I was in, it might take 10 minutes before I'm in a stock, and I might not even know this for 10 minutes, right? And now if there's a news blurb or something that's important about a stock, it's within milliseconds. Computers have already reacted to it. So the speed at which things are moving is night and day. It's completely different. The other thing, maybe, and this is more of a sad tale, is that the people, you had a whole, and I understand that it was expensive to run the infrastructure, but there were a lot of people that worked very hard to do the right thing by their clients. Now, everything is an ETF and everything is, everybody is average, whereas that was never our goal as brokers on the floor or in the industry. Nobody wanted to be average. You want to be able to do a better job for your client than the next guy. Now, everybody just wants to be average. And to me, that's fine because the risk is lower, but I don't know. I'd rather take a risk and I'm older now, so I don't really want that risk, but for a good portion of my life, I had no problem with risk. Sure. You take a shot, you look at something, you try to look at it, intelligently with no emotion, and you more than likely would be right. You're looking at something, you have some information. Now, it's just average, and pretty much anything. And this is a sad thing, and this is something that I deal with a lot of wealth advisors. They're not offering anything anybody else has. There's no advantage anywhere, because anything that if you want to invest in, you can go online and get as much information as you possibly can find, and everyone else can do the same thing. So there's no real advantage anymore as far as like a research. Sometimes guys will do some serious research and it makes you think, and then you can act on that. But the reality is that research it's available to everybody. So there's nothing, there's really nothing out there that's going to be better than anything else. So I know that's a terrible thing to say, but it is the truth. The reality is that, if you have an advisor and you're dealing with one, it's the personality, it's the people. They're not giving you anything you can't get from a different guy. You just have a good relationship with them and you trust them. So to me, that's changed too. It used to be where there was a lot of intuition, a lot of, you do research, but you'd have intuition as well. Now it's just, everything's average and you're really not adding anything serious to anybody's portfolio.
Peter, you and I are both college football fans, and you know that with coaching over time, there were certain coaches that made great in-game decisions or maybe in-game adjustments, and that was kind of before analytics became a huge part of college football. And now guys they make decisions based on the book. There's some, though, that still have, gut feelings, and sometimes they will go against what the book says. And I think there's still a place for guys like that seem to have a feel. Is there any, gut decision making at all when it comes to brokers and traders at this point? Say, look, I know what the analytics say. I know what the conventional wisdom says, but I think I'm going to make this informed decision that actually goes against what everybody else is saying?
Well, you know what, Richard, what happens is that you may have that gut feeling and, and a lot of times it'll work, but the reality is that you are up against algorithms, you're up against computer models, you're up against a lot of different things that if the data and the analytics shows X, generally it's going to go to that specific spot. And it may not go there correctly, but if the analytics say that this stock should trade here at certain points, but you feel that, no, that's not right because of X, Y, and Z, some other factors that are not being included in that model, generally you don't have enough power and presence to take advantage of that because there's computer models that are all programmed a certain way and they'll get a stock to whatever price they're going to get it to. You can't fight that tide anymore. There were times when you had the ability to do that, but now you're fighting I'm going to say a losing battle. Not really a losing battle, but I think it's an uphill battle when you have a gut feeling and it goes counter to what the prevailing, and I'm going to use the word wisdom is very loosely because I don't think the computer has any wisdom, but the prevailing wisdom, you're going to go counter against that. I'd say that you're probably going to lose more than you're going to win. So I hate to say it because it's taking that human element out of things and decisions. But the models and the way and the amount of money that's invested in these programs and the different computer situations is a tremendous amount as opposed to what you're thinking and what companies are thinking. And, you'll get a lot from when you hear the companies speak, and the models have already started programming that. It's a shame. I mean, we had a great industry, and there was a lot of people that I really liked and trusted, and most of them are playing golf right now in South Carolina, so I might have to join them.
Maybe so. Peter Costa, my guest, it's a couple of minutes left. Market analyst or former market analyst with CNBC, still involved in the market to some degree as a consultant and a speaker, and he's a former governor on the New York Stock Exchange. Last thing for you, there's a guy, and I don't remember his name. I've seen a couple of interviews that he's done where he has tracked and invested with a mirror on Nancy Pelosi and all of the trades that she has made over the last, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the number is. And the returns are just off the charts. I mean, just exceptional returns. And so that brings into a conversation, and it's something that Lance has railed on a number of times, and that's the information that legislators get that allows them to make trades that I don't have access to, you don't have access to before that information becomes readily available. It is trading on insider information, or at least allegedly it is. How much is this going on, and does it need to stop?
All right. We could do
a whole show.
You got
2 minutes. Okay, well, we'll do a whole show, but you got 2 minutes right now.
I'll be very succinct. I think that it should be stopped. I think when you have legislators who make the laws, then don't include themselves within those laws, I think that's got to stop. That's the first thing that should stop. When the law is in place, either by the SEC or whoever, everyone should be included in that. The legislators should not be. They do have, it may not technically be insider information, but when you're going to pass legislation that is going to impact a certain group, and then you go out and buy that whole group, that is inside information. All right. I mean, that's a very hard thing to prove, by the way. I mean, you see a lot of insider trading cases that get either settled or the perpetrator gets acquitted. So it's not an easy thing to prove, but I think that we should stop this. And I think that, I'm on Lance's side. It drives me crazy. And Nancy Pelosi is not the only one that's succeeded. I think. Sure. And I know who you're talking. Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. He's only chosen her because she's been in Congress, for 54 years or whatever it is, 100 years. I mean, she looks like she's been there 200. But anyway, she's worth $180 million, and she makes $200,000 a year. And I mean, I'm sorry. No matter how good an investor you are, if you don't have some sort of information and knowledge prior to something happening, you're not that good at trading. I don't care who you are.
The math is not mathing.
The math does not work. No, it's not mathing. And there are others in that field, and I'm not going to say what party they belong to, but I think both parties are responsible, and I think that needs to stop. But
Peter, we're out of time this morning. Yeah, I appreciate it as always. Such good insight and good stories. We'll talk soon, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
From the
All right, now to the important stuff.
Your VIP pass to hear what the most influential Mississippians are talking about.
This is very important.
Huge news. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
If you have that message in your inbox that says, please sign and review and return your tax returns, a reminder that today is October 15th, and if you have put tax returns off from the April 15th deadline, today is the deadline, and so don't forget about that. Sometimes it's easy to slip your mind if you just want it to slip your mind. Richard Cross, Lance Tolbert, it is Mornings with Richard Cross. We appreciate you being along for the ride this morning. Thanks to both of our guests. Mr. Jodice, enjoyed the conversation with him, Brian Jodice from the American Federation for Children, and I always enjoy, and I hope you do as well, the visits that we have with Peter Costa. He is a great guy. He's been in the business for a really long time. Working in and around Wall Street and in finance, and he's also a normal guy. He's not like a finance pinhead. You know, there are a few of those out there, but he's also pretty down the middle in terms of his political beliefs. He's not way to the right. He's not way to the left. Fairly moderate. He admits in some of his newsletters, if you read those, Costa's Corner, you can get those for free. It's a Substack newsletter that's got some interesting insight in it. He admits regularly that he has some libertarian tendencies that go along with that. But
I think a lot of people in that business, are more moderate than you would imagine, because really, if you work for clients, your number one fiduciary is their best interest. Sure. And so, politics really, all you're hoping for in the political world is stability, enough so that growth happens at a fairly, reasonable pace. And it doesn't really matter who's in power, as long as your clients don't fire you, so you just want to make them money. And as he said, I think he made some really good points, how much the business has changed from where there were a lot of intuition and gut feelings and research that really played a big piece of that. And now it's much more an algorithmic model, so you're not going to beat the math, and you're not going to beat Nancy Pelosi's, a war chest to invest again. So you just kind of ride with the wave a lot now,
Yeah.
And I think you made some good points there.
I am about to buy a book. Peter actually texted me this, went to an event last night. So Andrew Ross Sorkin has written a new book called 1929, Inside the Greatest Crash in Wall Street History and How It Shattered a Nation. Debuted yesterday, actually. Was released yesterday. Andrew Ross Sorkin, the author of the New York Times bestseller Too Big to Fail. That is next on my reading list. So,
yeah, I enjoyed the business early, probably the first 10 years. You did a lot of things with folks like Peter, not necessarily on the floor, but you dealt directly with broker-dealers and especially in the debt world. And it was fun. You found deals and you found things that may be undervalued, and you were able to, deal in 5s and 10s, bonds. You'd be buying 5 or 10 or 20. Now everything's a fund, basically. You don't have a lot of individual holdings. And the old analyst role has changed a great deal as well. But he is a brilliant man, and it's always wonderful to hear his insights into the markets. And, like he said, a lot of them, it was a lot of good friends of his are playing golf in South Carolina now,
Yeah, that's right.
Just find a way to cash out and get out because things have changed immeasurably almost,
We got a message during the break, and I'm glad because it was a reminder for me. Richard, enjoy your program most every morning. Your question this morning to the fast-talking school choice dude was most appropriate, which he completely avoided. I wish you could bring the subject up again. Quote, what about the additional cost of education for the transferring student left to the recipient district taxpayers? Close quote. So, yeah, that's I enjoyed the visit with Brian, and I enjoy the perspective the different perspectives that exist on this issue. Here is something that I'm concerned about. And forgive me if this is old-fashioned for saying, yeah, but the devil is in the details. I'm not a big cliche guy, but I think that one matters here. And here's what I mean. You can talk about school choice in broad terms, educational freedom in broad terms. And if I only use broad terms, I have trouble coming up with arguments against the idea of universal choice. Because, look, on the surface, if that's as far as we go, the statement, every parent should have the opportunity to choose what is best for their child. The statement, every child deserves what is best for them in terms of a learning environment. I am 100% on board. Yes, I agree. In theory, that every parent should have the opportunity to choose what they believe is best for their child. Okay, but what does that mean? And what are the implications of that statement, taking that statement, that idea, that premise, and putting it into action? So specifically to the question here, we got to do numbers for a second. And I know numbers don't translate exactly on the radio, and you're going to have to kind of go with me on approximation here because I don't have the exact. Now, I've talked to people about these, and I've looked them up. I just don't have them in front of me right now. I don't have time to dig for them. Funding for public schools is multifaceted. You have federal dollars, state dollars, local dollars, and then in some cases, foundation or charitable dollars that go into building the budgets that school districts have to educate the children that are in their district. Some of those are fixed, and some of those change a little. The state legislature decides what the per student allocation is for all of the students in public schools in Mississippi. And that number is about, give or take, $6,000 a student. Somewhere between $6,000 and $7,000, but just for the purposes of this conversation, we'll say $6,000. And then you look at how budgets are made up for school districts. A percentage of their funding comes from the state. A percentage of their funding comes from the federal government. And a percentage of their funding comes from local taxpayers. Now, the breakdown of exactly how that money works with regard to public school students in Mississippi, the smallest slice of that pie comes from the federal government, right? So that's probably it varies a little bit from district to district, but 10 to 20% of the funding for a student, if you break this down on a per student cost, comes from the federal level. And then it's roughly 40% that comes from the state and roughly 40 to 45% that comes from local funding. Comes from your taxes, your local city or county taxes. So if you talk about a student transferring from one district to the next and taking the per student cost with them, if you have, I'm going to make this easier today than I did the other day. I'm going to go back and use Madison and Canton as my example, but I'm going to realize that that's the same county. It's just different school districts. And so if you have someone that is in the Madison, let's see, do I want to do Madison or Canton? If you have a student that is in the Madison County School District and wants to transfer to the Canton School District, and you allow the money to follow. Okay, so the $6,000 that the state allocates goes with them. Maybe the federal dollars go with them, but the local tax dollars don't. Those stay within the Madison School District. And so when that child moves over to the Canton School District, if it costs $14,000 to educate that child in a year, maybe you've picked up the $6,000 from the state. Maybe you picked up $1,500 from the federal dollars, if the federal dollars were to follow. Well, what about the other $6,500? Where does that come from? That's the new school district's responsibility.
Wake up, get up, and start your day right with Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Really good message here on the C Spire text line. You can be part of the conversation, 601-879-4395. Let me finish up just the tail end of that example I was giving you before the break, talking about I need to know the details. So if it costs $14,000 to educate a student in Mississippi, and again, we're using round numbers, so don't pin me to the wall and throw darts at me if I'm off by $1,000 or a couple of $1,000 one way or another. But these are in the neighborhood. It costs $14,000 to educate a student in Mississippi. And the state portion of that funding is $6,000. And the local portion of that funding is $6,000. And then federal funding is the final $2,000. And let's just say in this scenario that a kid moves from one district to another, and the state and federal dollars follow that student, so that makes up $8,000. But the $6,000 that was coming from local tax revenue does not follow that student. And so the new school district is responsible for that final $6,000 for the $14,000 educational cost for that child. From where is that money coming? And if it's one student, okay, it's not a big deal. It's $6,000. It's a drop in the bucket. But what if it's 100 students? And it's $600,000. And it makes up, $600,000 is 2% of your annual budget. Well, how many teachers could you have hired for $600,000? Or if that's $600,000 you have to spend that you didn't previously have to spend, from where does that money come? And I'm not saying that is a derailment of the entire idea of school choice, but it's the devil in the details part of this where, like, I need to know how that's going to work and how it's going to work at scale. Because right now I don't know the answer to that. And that's just in a public-to-public transfer conversation. Now, if it's 10 students that go district to district and the district is responsible for $60,000 and somebody that's paying local taxes for a kid to be educated in their district, even though they live in another district, my response to you is going to be, shut up. Like, just stop. That is a ridiculous argument. But if it becomes a multiple of 10 students, it becomes 100 or it becomes 200 or whatever, and then it becomes a real situation where a school district is having to ask its municipal government to change the millage rate, and it causes taxes to go up for people who are paying taxes to educate the students in their city or their county, but now they're having to float the cost for students from other counties or other districts that are coming in, and those people are not paying into the pot. That is a reason for concern. And that's something that has to be worked out in this conversation, and it's got to be explained very, very clearly to me. Here's the message I said was good. I think that the objective for adults in the state of Mississippi should be adding people to the tax payroll or the tax rolls so that our burden is lessened or grows a tremendous amount slower. If changing a school district to one that better suits that child then becomes an investment in the future, it blows my mind that any person that's a parent would refuse to allow another parent to make that choice of what they deem best for the child. The medical community doesn't do it. The working world doesn't do it, but our schools do. That makes no sense to me. I think it's a really good message. It's a really good message. If it's about educating and growing the workforce into the future, building tomorrow's workforce, then that's a reasonable question. And the argument that some people make of, well, I don't even have kids that are school age in this community, and I'm having to pay taxes that go toward the schools. You're welcome for your real estate values. You don't have the option to opt out of garbage service. You don't have the option to opt out of police protection. You don't have the option to opt out of fire protection. You don't have the option of opting out of funding public schools in your community. Sorry. David Fisher Land Company has been in business for over 40 years. They are headquartered in the heart of the Mississippi Delta in Inverness, and they want to help you with all of your land needs. Whether it's 100 acres or several thousand acres or an equity share in a hunting club anywhere in the Delta, David Fisher Land Company is ready to earn your business. Their website, it's a good one, davidfisherland.com. You go there, you click on current listings, and you will see what they've got. A farm in Sunflower in Coahoma County. A great hunting property with a mix of hardwoods and pastures in Oktibbeha County. Friars Point, Mississippi. Humphreys County, and lots of others. Check out their website, davidfisherland.com. Reach out to David, Jack, or Travis. They'd love to help you with all of your land needs. Tell them you heard about them on SuperTalk Mississippi, the website, davidfisherland.com. Thanks for spending part of your Wednesday morning with us. For Lance, I'm Richard. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
I'm pretty good at drinking beer.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.